On this episode, we are heading all the way out to Toronto to talk to a master of movement. What is going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 95 of the Foundation First Fitness Show. Today, we have a guest on our show from Toronto, Ontario. Honestly, I usually butcher the intros and usually get people to kind of jump all over their intros and basically talk about them. I'm going to shut my mouth and I'm going to let you take over. So John, tell everyone a bit about yourself. And we'll start with there. Give us a bit of like a backstory, education, all that stuff.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, first of all, for having me on the show, man. Super stoked to be doing this. Yeah, so my name is John. I'm a registered massage therapist from Toronto. Been in practice for about 4 years now. Prior to that, I was doing my undergrad at the University of Western Ontario. So I did a double major in biology and medical science. And then I transitioned into massage therapy right after I graduated. Yeah, so like that was like 4 years ago when I graduated RMT school. The path was kind of interesting because like, as a kid or as a teen, I was playing a lot of basketball and my main injury was ankle sprains. And I've been to my fair share of like physios, chiros, RMTs to kind of like get that rehabilitated. But for some reason, like I only really resonated with my massage therapist. And I feel like that's what kind of pushed me into that direction a little bit more. I don't know if things would have changed if it was like, I had a really good relationship with my physio or whatever, but yeah, that's kind of like what gave me the idea post grad to be like, let's try this. Let's see if this will work. But yeah, that's kind of like how I got into it.
That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I think what I love the most is when you talk to people about how they got into things and then like their mind, you kind of like get to that. What was that like tipping point that kind of got someone into something? I love that almost that light bulb moment when everything just kind of shifts. So you right now, where do you work? Like, what's the name of the place you work at?
So I'm working at Myo Detox. It's a rehab clinic. It has massage therapists, chiros, physiotherapists. We have, I'd say we're building one clinic right now. So we have 4 clinics in Toronto, soon to be 5. And then we are 6 in Vancouver and then 1 in LA. Oh, wow. Yeah. So it happened pretty quickly. The company's 5 years old. I've been with them for 3 years. So I've seen the growth. It's pretty exciting actually.
They're 5 years old?
5 years old. Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah. 2015.
Damn, that's fast. Jesus. I'm actually surprised when a company like doubles, gets another clinic like after like 4 years. These guys are like flying. Wow.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting too. Like humble beginnings. Our clinic was actually on top of a barbershop before. Really? So like, just picture like a
people
condo unit. Yeah, it's a condo unit, but you're like the ground floor.
Yeah.
So the ground floor was the barbershop, and it was owned by like a bunch of like tatted up dudes with like beards and like just imagine like a 45-year-old soccer mom walking to a barbershop to go to get physio. She had to go up the stairs, and like there's no way you couldn't not walk. So
you had to go into the barbershop to then go upstairs to do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what?
It was wild.
Honest, the craziest thing is that if you think about it, that probably helped them, if anything. Because then it goes like no one in their right mind is going to trust someone that literally works above a barbershop, or you have to go in the barbershop to go upstairs to get treated 100%. If they're not good. Like if you're not providing something, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I think that's so cool. Like we're in a basement, like random, like it's the funniest thing. I didn't even notice I didn't mention this to you. We're like located off the side of a highway.
Right.
And like, you could see us. Like if you ever drive from Toronto to Montreal, you will pass right in front of my office.
Right.
But to get to the door, it's literally like it's a labyrinth. Like you have no idea where you're going. It's like
Yeah.
behind like it's like in some secret vortex that you have to go through to appear on the. Do you know how many people call us? They always got there like, I don't know if I'm here. I think I'm here. It's like you go around the block, and then when you get to the point there, come out, park your car, and then you're gonna walk the doors. And it's like, man, we're so visible, but yet completely like unreachable. So, and like honestly, like if you can build that kind of a business, I think that's really interesting.
Sure.
What's your mission? Like you yourself, like I know we've spoken about the company a bit, but like, what's your mission? Like, what are you trying to achieve?
That's a loaded question, but for sure, trying to just grow within the company, to be honest. Like I'm pretty new in terms of being a massage therapist. So one is just soak up as much as you can as you're early in your career, because money will come. I feel like if you just really master your craft and just, a lot of people graduate from their respective fields and they feel like they kind of know everything. And it annoys me a little bit, because like you can never know everything about the human body, but at the same time, it's like, just be curious, man. Just keep grinding, keep working, and surround yourself with killers. Like if you just surround yourself with the right people, the right group of colleagues or whatever, teammates, whatever you want to call them, they're going to drive you and push you to be better. So I feel like in the next like 5 years of my career, I'm just going to really practice my craft and try to just learn and be sufficient in treating whatever injuries, whatever rehab protocols. And then from there is to be more heavily involved in the community aspect of the company. So we have a community director. She is in Vancouver, and I've been working pretty closely with her on a one-on-one basis to kind of just understand what we can do in Toronto to kind of like elevate the whole experience for our communities. And I feel like at the end of the day, if you take away like the internet, if you take away everything like marketing, Instagram, all that stuff, the only thing that will keep you alive is word of mouth. So I feel like if you really just nourish your existing clientele and just like put them on a pedestal, man, just like give them everything that they deserve, then it's going to come back to you tenfold. But that comes with a lot of work and a lot of free pro bono sessions sometimes. So, but you got to do it. You got to do it.
I completely get that. I think if you're not, I know we're going on to a little bit of a marketing talk, but let's do it. I mean, at this point, I think it's true. Like if you don't, one of the things I think that we do really poorly at my place is community work. Like not necessarily, not saying work for the community, but for us building our community. You know, like our word of mouth is good, but I think it's good because of our skill set, not because we're actually like paying attention to the word of mouth. Like I think so many people live on social media. I'm not saying social media is useless, not going to do anything for you, but I think so many people force the social media so much, but don't really pay attention. Like they're going after the next client instead of thinking about the current client.
No, 100%. Yeah.
Like it's the biggest disconnect that they don't realize that I would like if you told me, hey, go see this. Like if I came to you and was like, John, do you know anybody that can like fix my roof? The chances that I'm going to pick someone you told me to pick is so much higher than me going on Google or Instagram and finding said person.
For sure.
I'm going to trust word of mouth of people that I respect 10 times more. By the way, you're someone I respect now. Subtle drop there. But it's going to be like, I'm going to trust that so much more than I'm going to trust a social media, which is why like, I love that you're talking about that, because I think community is like one of the things that like everyone's completely forgotten.
Yeah. It's a lost art, man. And if you tell people to do it now, like it's actually harder than they seem, because like, it's easy to kind of like text through social media, but when you need to have that like one-on-one interaction, it's harder than it's tough. Yeah. And if you really want to sell it, it's like, it's not so much selling it, but more just like being a genuine human being and like, just understanding what they want. And I feel like that goes tenfold once you understand how to generate that relationship.
Yeah. In your specialty and what you're doing, what do you
Mm-hmm.
think needs to change? What is the biggest thing that needs to change?
So as a massage therapist, I feel like the misconception that we are just people that kind of like enforce relaxation onto our clients.
Yeah.
It's definitely an aspect of it, but we can do so much more. Like we can do, like we're able to do exercise prescription. Like we're able to kind of get them to go through movement. And that's kind of like what my practice is like now. If you have a session with me for a full hour, 60-40, 60 minutes, or sorry, 60% is hands-on, 40% will be movement. And then it shifts as you go through the treatment plan. It'll kind of slowly become like 50-50 and then slowly become the opposite. So I'll do less manual and more movement as you kind of move along that whole spectrum of the rehab. But I feel like a lot of massage therapists aren't confident and comfortable with treating that way because movement, because honestly it's the way the education system is like. We are taught to drape. So draping, if you guys don't know, is basically like when you go into a massage room, on the table there'll be like sheets, and basically you're supposed to like undress your comfort level, go in between the sheets, and then like as we're working on you, we'll undrape certain areas of the body. It's fine because we're basically doing that to keep you safe and not expose any body parts that don't need to be exposed. But the way that we treat at Myo Detox is like just come in your gym wear, your t-shirt, your shorts, so that you have free accessibility. And the biggest benefit of that is that you're not doing guesswork anymore. What that means is like, for example, if I'm treating someone with the sheets and they're on their stomach and their low back hurts, I can be working on their glute or their low back for a full hour. And I won't know if I'm doing anything productive until they get up off the table. But that's already too late.
There's no test retest.
That's the thing. I mean, people can argue and be like, yo, why don't you just get them to like put their clothes back on and then get them to move around? But that'd be the most inefficient treatment in the world. You know what I mean? So it's like when you're able to kind of like assess them, get them to jump on the table, do a little bit, get them back up, move around. And if they feel looser, if they feel better, then you're golden. That's where you want to focus on. If they get up and they don't feel better, focus on something else. But you won't know until you change the way you treat.
That's a good point. I've never I think one of the things that was really interesting was that you actually had a good, like you see what I caught my attention was the first thing you said, which was I go 60-40 manual to exercise. And as progression goes, I shift. Yeah. Why is that?
Manual therapy is basically to create space in the body. So if you want to create space, it's to allow the joints to essentially understand how to move. But once you have created that space through manual therapy, you can now load it. And that's kind of like creating the capacity for the joints. So it's kind of like a full spectrum. Usually this takes like, for me personally, like anywhere between 6 to 8 sessions with one individual, focusing primarily on whatever they are having concerns with. But essentially that's the whole philosophy behind it, is like, how do we kind of reposition your body so that it is able to move optimally, and then we load you, get you to go through the movement patterns that will help benefit you in a more longer term. Because we all know like manual therapy can only do so much. You kind of have to create habit and let it be part of your routine and create a new pattern for your body so that you actually understand how to utilize the space that you have.
Wow, that's actually really good. I think that's like super important. I mean, the craziest thing is that I'm sitting here, you might not see much reaction from me, but my mind is like moving a mile a minute right now. And it's like, I'm like, man, like you and I we're speaking such similar languages. It's so the amount of stuff that if you honestly listen to like anyone who's listening right now, who's listened to 50% will know that 49% of my episodes are literally verbatim what you just said. Literally verbatim what you just said. Like just understanding that like you've got to create the space, you've got to create the habit. once you've created the space, you can create the habit. And then it's
Exactly.
I think people are just so like, I think it's very much like what's going on, right? And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I see is a lot of black and white treatment styles where it's like we're either going full manual or we're going full exercise. And then you realize that it's like just there has to be that understanding, that carryover, which is what I think you're touching on, which is really important. So I love that kind of like, I guess that philosophy, that philosophical approach to it that you need to, I feel like as if like when I'm listening to you talk, it seems as if like you have an understanding of like almost like the global spectrum. Like it's like if I, quote unquote, your religion of what you're doing is really understood. Like you really have had, like, I feel like you've had these discussions in your head before about like what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. And I think like, as you said, if you keep like experimenting with stuff and keep pushing the boundaries of what is commonly done, like you're only going to be developing your skills more than anything.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
What are your 3 fundamental tips that you think that you rely on for work? What are 3 fundamental tips that you rely on for your work? 3 fundamental things that you rely on. I'll put it that way. This is a head scratcher.
Things. Yeah. So I think first always is you have to know your audience. I think that's number 1. And what that really means is like, if you have, for example, you go into work and you have 10 people scheduled in the day, I think there's a lot of value of understanding what each individual person, if it's like a follow-up, you need to know what you did with them prior.
Yeah.
And I don't do it all the time, but on the days that I do catch myself doing it, man, it changes the whole day. Like you are so much more well prepped and you just give so much more value to that session versus like, if you don't kind of like look back on things that you progress them with, or if you don't know what you were working on them with previously, you're searching the whole time. Right. And you always want to make sure that they feel valued. And that's another way of kind of building that rapport with your client. It's like, whenever I'm doing my notes and they're talking to me in person, I always put down something or some story that they told me that kind of like relates back to our relationship on a more human level versus just like therapist client. Because if you can be the world's best trainer, therapist, whoever, but you won't be able to help anyone until that person can trust you. And I think that's just a fact, right?
For me, I'm good. I'm done. Our conversation's over. That's it. That's the tagline. It's done.
Yeah.
No one gives a shit what you say. I swore. I was the first one to swear on my show. Great. We're not supposed to swear on the show. Now I did. Yeah. No one trusts, no one's going to give you, you're not going to be able, it's almost like you're not going to be able to affect the change or have the change that you want for them if they don't trust you. Right. Sure. Like that's so, I couldn't have never said that better myself. Like that was so eloquently put. I loved it. That's going to be like on Instagram. It's so, like people don't realize that that's like the key difference. So.
And honestly, like that comes with some experience too, right? Like you kind of have to experience it firsthand before you really, really understand what I'm trying to say, because you'll get those people like right off the bat, like you can just feel that they don't trust you. And like, you're going to go home and you're going to be like, what the hell was I doing wrong? Or like, why isn't this person progressing? Or why isn't there's no change, right? But sometimes honestly, like it's not in your book, like it's not in your court. Like you just have to understand that when you are in this type of profession, it's a service. So you essentially have to match with the person that you're working with. And honestly, and it's totally fine if you don't, but you are gonna have a higher chance if you prep yourself before the session, and just take in all those little things, like what they did on the weekend, or like that show that they were going to watch that you told them to watch on Netflix. Do you know what I mean? Like remembering all those little things makes it so much more valuable. And I've come to understand that that's a really great way to build your community as well.
Wow, great. 3 tips for people at home listening, driving, to, I guess, function better, prevent that injury, move better, live better. What are 3 tips?
Check your feet.
Check your what?
Your feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one. A lot of people kind of overlook their feet.
Do you do
especially, yeah, I'm huge on feet, man. That's one of my, that was another thing that I was going to be, like the other question that you just had.
Oh, sorry.
That was going to be, no, it's all good. That's all good. Yeah. But definitely like check your feet, because that's one of the biggest things. Your weight distribution and how mobile is your foot is going to translate into pretty much everything that you do. Walking, running, standing. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the Foot Collective?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. They're in Ottawa, right?
Yeah, I had Nick St. Louis on the show. Like
nice.
Back, like 50.
Yeah. They're doing great things.
I have 4 beams here. Love them. None of my guys train with shoes on. No one trains in my facility with shoes.
That's perfect.
It's all barefoot. The only time we put on shoes is if we're doing like shifting, like lateral movements, because I don't want them like tearing the bottom of their feet.
Yeah, for sure.
And obviously, because we're on rubber floor, if we were like on turf, I wouldn't care. But when you're on the rubber floor, you can't do that. Outside of that, like it's all barefoot. You know,
no, it's so important.
I figured that out like 3 or 4 years ago. Like that, if your feet were crap, like if you didn't have a good like foot structure and foot posture, like it was garbage. You were in trouble.
Yeah, 100%. Thoracic spine is another one. It's kind of like, I think of it as like the 3 rocks of the body. So basically like feet, ankles, pelvis, hip, and your T-spine. Those are the 3 things that you want. Like forget about everything else. Who cares about your shoulders, whatever. Just like focus on those 3 things, and everything else will kind of unfold on its own, because any thoracic movement is going to be dictated based on like how your shoulder blade moves as well. If your T-spine isn't moving, or your torso isn't moving, more likely your T-spine or your scapula or shoulder blade is going to be overworking or not moving properly, and then that's going to lead into shoulder injuries.
Problems, everything else. Yeah.
Right. So focus on those main 3 things, and then you'll start feeling a little bit more agile. And then lastly is just variability. It's just if you're a desk worker sitting or just driving a lot, that body is in the path of least resistance all the time. So you're always just searching for that easy way out, because you're kind of like feeding into that position all the time. If you're able to kind of like create some variability in your body as you progress throughout the day, that will have more, more benefit than just like sitting in a chair for 8 hours and then going home and doing like 30 minutes of cat cows and then going to sleep. It's like, it's too much, right? So if you can kind of break up your day in little segments, I feel like that will help in the long run a little bit more.
Yeah, I like that. It's really funny. These are like 3 things that I've like given as like, they're like episode. Oh God, I love that when I bring people on and there's just like, we're on the same page. It's like, I feel like staring into the camera and looking at the people that are being like, exactly. Remember the last 99 episodes? Exactly.
Yeah.
How do people, if someone wants to come and see you in Toronto, they're in Toronto, how do they come and see you?
Well, our clinics aren't open just yet, but pretty much
like if they were like everything was open, you guys are taking measures.
Easiest way is probably to hit me up on Instagram, to be honest. My handle is John Rehab. Or if you don't use Instagram, you can always just go on myodetox.com, the website, and then my schedule is there. You can just book a session. Super easy.
How did you get John Rehab? Like, how was that actually available? I saw it. I was like, that must be like such an OG Instagram.
Yeah, it was a while, man. I had that like back in 2016, 2017.
Wow.
Yeah, so I got lucky, I guess. I know. It's like, yeah,
it's like seems like such a obvious one that someone would have taken.
for sure. Yeah.
And when I saw it, I was like, how did he manage that? Like if it was if it's like your full name, like for me, it's like my full name. Like there's how many Bobak Owens are there walking around in the country?
For sure.
So I'm like, I'll be pretty good. I should be okay. But John Rehab was like, whoa, that's pretty.
Yeah, I know.
I like
it's
it.
like, thank you. Appreciate
all
that.
that's going to be in the bottom. So for anybody who's watching it on YouTube, it popped by. Anyone listening to this on the podcast, it's in the description. John, any last final notes? Anything you want to add?
I think that covers it all, man. Really, really appreciate you having me on here. This was
Dude, I appreciate you coming on. I know things are crazy. I know you guys got a lot going on with planning the reopen and all that stuff. It's
fingers crossed.
Yeah. So let's hope that you guys can get that thing going and get the ball rolling again. Hopefully you guys stay safe. Appreciate you coming on, man. Appreciate it. Love to talk. Can't wait for us to be able to like actually like have this podcast episode in person, or have another podcast episode, but in person. I think it's gonna be really awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Whenever the lights come back on and you can make your way to Toronto, just hit me up, man.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. I appreciate that. Awesome. Cool. Listen, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And for all those of you who are listening out there, stay safe and keep building that foundation. Take care.